I turned the key at 12:15 on a Tuesday, groceries hanging from both arms. The house was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, the wrong kind. The kind that makes your stomach tighten before your brain catches up. I set the bags on the kitchen counter. Milk, bread, the chicken breasts she'd texted me about that morning. 3 exclamation points after, "Don't forget." Like I ever forgot anything. That was the problem, wasn't it? I remembered everything. The faucet wasn't running. No television murmur from the living room. But there was something, faint music from upstairs, and laughter. Her laugh, the one she used to use with me 5 years ago, before I became background noise in my own life. I climbed the stairs, each step careful, instinctive. The bathroom door stood half open. Steam curled out into the hallway, carrying the scent of lavender bath salts, the expensive ones she bought last month. I pushed the door wider. They didn't even startle. That's what I remember most clearly, how comfortable they looked. My wife reclined against the back of our bathtub, bubbles clustered around her shoulders. Beside her, stretched out with one arm along the porcelain edge, sat Trevor from 3 houses down, the neighbor who always borrowed our lawnmower, who showed up at our barbecues uninvited and stayed late. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? A wine bottle stood on the counter. 2 glasses, both half empty, both leaving wet rings on the marble I'd installed myself last summer. "Oh," my wife said, not startled, not embarrassed, just, "Oh," like I'd interrupted her reading a magazine. "You're home early." Trevor smiled. Actually smiled. "Hey man, your wife was just telling me about that new restaurant downtown." I stood in the doorway, grocery receipts still crumpled in my pocket, and something inside me went very still. Very cold. Very clear. "Get out," I said. "Excuse me?" My wife sat up straighter, bubbles sliding down her collarbone. "Don't take that tone with me. We're just relaxing." "In my bathtub." "Our bathtub," she corrected. "And you're being ridiculous. Trevor's going through a rough patch. I was being a good neighbor." Trevor raised his glass slightly, like we were all in on the same joke. "No hard feelings, right? It's not what it looks like." I stepped back into the hallway, pulled the door closed, and turned the exterior lock I'd installed 6 months ago after my wife kept leaving it unlocked when she showered. She'd called me paranoid then. "Hey!" Her voice rose, muffled through the wood. "What are you doing?" I walked downstairs, through the kitchen, out to the front porch. The afternoon sun hit my face, warm and ordinary, like the world hadn't just tilted sideways. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a number I'd never called before. Ember. Trevor's wife. The woman who'd waved at me from her garden last weekend while Trevor borrowed my hedge trimmer. She answered on the second ring. "Hello? Ember, this is your neighbor. From number 42. I need you to come to my house right now. Don't ask questions, just come." "Is someone hurt?" "No, but you need to see something." I hung up before she could respond. Inside, the pounding started. My wife's fists against the bathroom door, her voice climbing octaves. Trevor shouting something I couldn't make out. I sat on the porch steps and waited. 3 minutes later, a car door slammed in my driveway. Ember stood beside her SUV, keys still in her hand, confusion written across her face. "What's going on? You sounded—" I stood, gestured toward my front door. "Your husband is upstairs, in my bathroom, with my wife. They've been there at least an hour, based on how much wine they've gone through." Her face went very pale, very still, just like mine had, minutes earlier. "Show me," she said. We stood outside the bathroom door together, listening to the frantic voices within. My wife had stopped pounding. Now she was trying to reason through the wood, her tone shifting between anger and something approximating concern. "Honey, this isn't funny anymore. We need to talk about this like adults." I unlocked the door, pushed it open. The scene hadn't changed much. They'd wrapped themselves in towels at least. My wife stood pressed against the sink, arms crossed. Trevor had moved to the far corner, suddenly very interested in the tile pattern. Ember walked past me into the bathroom. She didn't say anything for a long moment, just looked at her husband, then at my wife, then at the wine bottle, the 2 glasses, the bubble bath that was slowly dissipating into ordinary water. "Get dressed," Ember said finally. Her voice was steady, flat. "Both of you. And Trevor, you have 10 minutes to get whatever you absolutely need from our house. Everything else, I'll pack up and put on the lawn." "Jen, listen," Trevor started. 10 minutes. My wife found her voice then, the indignant one she used when someone questioned her at dinner parties. "This is absurd. You're all overreacting to a completely innocent situation." I laughed. Couldn't help it. The sound came out harsh, unfamiliar. Innocent. Yes, innocent. God, I knew you'd make this into something it wasn't. You always do this. You always assume the worst about me. "Name one time," I said. "What?" "Name one time I've assumed the worst about you. One time I've accused you of anything. One time I've questioned where you were or who you were with." She opened her mouth, closed it. Her eyes darted to Trevor, who was pulling on his pants with shaking hands. "That's what I thought," I said, "because I trusted you. For 13 years, I trusted you completely. I never checked your phone, never asked why you stayed out late, never questioned when you said you were meeting your sister." "I was meeting my sister." "Were you meeting her last Thursday? When you came home at midnight smelling like chlorine?" Her face changed, just slightly, just enough. "Trevor has a hot tub," I continued. My voice stayed level, calm, like I was discussing weather patterns. "I know because he invited me over to see it last month. Said he'd installed it himself. Was very proud of it. Kept saying I should bring you over sometime for a soak." Ember made a small sound. Not quite a sob. Not quite a laugh. Trevor grabbed his shirt. "I'm leaving. This is crazy. You people are crazy." 9 minutes, Ember said. They left. Trevor first, practically running down my stairs. My wife followed more slowly, wrapped in a towel, her hair dripping onto my hardwood floors. She paused at the bedroom door. "We'll talk about this later," she said, "when you've calmed down." I didn't respond, just watched her disappear into our room. Her room now, I supposed. Hard to think of anything as ours anymore. Ember still stood in my bathroom, staring at nothing. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for calling me. Some people wouldn't have. Some people might not have cared," I replied. "I care." She nodded, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I should go, deal with everything." I walked her to the door, watched her drive away. Then I went to the kitchen and started putting away groceries. The chicken breasts went in the freezer, the milk in the fridge, the bread on the counter, everything in its place, everything orderly. Except nothing was orderly anymore, was it? I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. Started searching for things I'd never thought I'd need to search for. Separation agreements, property rights, financial protection. The words blurred together, legal jargon mixing with practical advice from divorced strangers on internet forums. My phone buzzed. A text from my wife. "Staying at hotel tonight, need space to think." I typed back, "Okay?" Nothing else. Just okay. Another text, 5 minutes later. "That's it? That's all you have to say?" I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my email and scrolled back through months of messages. Found one from August. My wife forwarding a joke Trevor had sent her. Found another from July. Trevor asking if we wanted to join them for dinner. Found 6 more. 10. 15. The pattern was there if you knew to look for it. The slow creep of familiarity. The inside jokes I wasn't part of. The casual intimacy that had somehow become normal. I'd been so stupid. No, not stupid. Trusting. There's a difference. I closed the laptop, walked upstairs to our bedroom. Her cosmetics covered the bathroom counter, her clothes draped over the chair, her presence saturating every corner of the space we'd shared, had shared, past tense already. I pulled a duffel bag from the closet and started packing. Enough for a few days, maybe a week, however long it took to figure out what came next. My phone rang. I recognized the number. Dave, my friend from college, the one who'd been through this already. Twice, actually. "You busy?" he asked when I answered. "Not particularly." "Want to come by the garage? I'm working on the Mustang." "Yeah," I said. "Yeah, I do." I grabbed my keys and left without looking back. The drive to Dave's place took 15 minutes through familiar streets, houses I'd passed 1,000 times, lawns I'd seen change with the seasons, a neighborhood that had felt like home until today. Now it just felt like a place where things had happened, where lies had been told, where trust had been broken so casually it might as well have been deliberate. Dave's garage sat behind his house, a standalone building with roll-up doors and windows that glowed yellow in the fading light. I parked on the street and walked up the gravel driveway. Dave's garage smelled like motor oil and sawdust, familiar and grounding. He stood over the hood of his project car, hands black with grease, not looking up when I walked in. "Beer's in the cooler," he said. I grabbed one, twisted off the cap, took a long drink. We didn't talk for 20 minutes. I watched him work, listened to the clank of tools, the scrape of metal on metal. The radio played classic rock at low volume. Everything felt solid here, real, not like the performance I'd been living in for years without realizing it. Finally, Dave straightened, wiped his hands on a rag, and turned to face me. "So," he said. "What happened?" I told him. All of it. The bathroom, the wine, the complete absence of shame, Ember arriving, my wife's indignation at being caught, the way Trevor had smiled like we were all friends sharing a joke. Dave listened without interrupting. When I finished, he took a pull from his own beer and nodded slowly. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I don't know." "Yeah, you do. You've been thinking about it since it happened. What do you want?" I considered that, turned the beer bottle in my hands, feeling the condensation slip under my fingers. "I want her to understand what she did. I want consequences. I want revenge," Dave said simply. "No, not revenge. Justice. There's a difference." He smiled slightly. "Is there? Revenge is emotional, messy, illegal. Justice is—" I trailed off, searching for the right words. "Justice is using the systems that exist, the legal ones, the proper channels, making sure that when this is over, nobody can say I did anything wrong." Dave set down his wrench, crossed his arms, studied me with the kind of attention that made me understand why his first 2 wives had underestimated him too. "You've been underestimated your whole marriage, haven't you?" The question hit harder than expected. "What do you mean?" "I mean, she thinks you're soft, predictable, easy to manage. Trevor thinks you're weak. They both think you'll roll over, accept whatever story they spin, maybe even apologize for making them uncomfortable." "How do you know that?" "Because that's how it always goes with guys like you. Quiet guys, decent guys. Everyone assumes quiet means powerless." He paused. "But you're not powerless, are you?" "No," I said. The word came out stronger than I expected. "I'm not." "Good. Then use it. Do things the right way. Document everything. Follow the rules exactly. Give them no ammunition to use against you later. And when it's done, make sure everyone knows the truth." I thought about that. About patterns and documentation. About the systems that existed to protect people in exactly my situation. Systems most people never bothered to learn about until it was too late. "I need to talk to some people," I said. "You need to talk to a lawyer." "Not yet. First, I need to understand what I'm dealing with. Assets, accounts, property. Everything we've built together. Dave nodded. Smart. Know what you have before you decide how to protect it. And hey, he grabbed another beer from the cooler, handed it to me. Whatever you're planning, take your time. Don't rush it. People like them, they're expecting you to react emotionally. To do something stupid they can use against you. Don't give them that. I won't. And one more thing. He looked at me seriously. When you're ready to make your move, make it count. Make it stick. Don't do anything halfway. If you're going to show people who you really are, show them completely. I finished my first beer. Opened the second. Thanks for this, for listening. That's what friends do, he said. Real friends, not the kind who borrow your lawnmower and your wife. I almost laughed at that. Almost. We spent another hour in the garage, not talking much, just existing in the same space. When I finally left, the sky had gone dark. Stars were visible between the clouds. The air smelled like rain coming. I drove home slowly, thinking about everything Dave had said, about being underestimated, about quiet not meaning powerless, about making things count. In my own driveway, my wife's car was still missing. The house stood dark and empty. I let myself in through the front door and stood in the entryway for a moment, listening to the silence. This was my house. I'd bought it before we married, with money my parents had left me. We'd built a life here, yes, but the foundation had always been mine. That mattered. That would matter when everything else shook loose. I went straight to my home office, the small room off the kitchen that had become mine by default. She never used it, said it was too cramped, too boring, like me. I pulled out the filing cabinet, started going through folders, bank statements, insurance policies, the deed to our house, tax returns, retirement account statements. Everything was joint, everything was shared. 13 years of building a life together, all documented in neat manila folders, except not everything was shared, was it? The house had been in my name first before we married. I'd bought it with money from my parents' estate. We'd added her name later, at her insistence. For estate planning, she'd said, for security. But the original purchase, the down payment, the first 5 years of mortgage payments, all mine, all documented, all provable. I made copies of everything, created a new folder labeled simply with today's date, organized it all chronologically, meticulously, every bank statement showing deposits from my paycheck, every mortgage payment cleared from my account, every property tax payment, every home improvement receipt with my signature. The paper trail was clean, clear, indisputable. My phone buzzed. A text from my wife. Can we talk tomorrow? Coffee shop on Main Street, 10 a.m.? I stared at the message for a long moment. Imagined her at that hotel, probably calling Trevor, probably planning what to say to me, how to spin this, how to make me feel guilty for overreacting, how to make me believe I'd misunderstood what I'd seen with my own eyes. I typed back, okay, but tomorrow at 10, I'd be somewhere else entirely, at the bank, starting the process of protecting what was mine. She could wait. She'd made me wait long enough. The bank opened at 9. I was there at 8:50, first customer through the door when they unlocked it. The lobby smelled like coffee and new carpet. Morning light slanted through tall windows, making everything look clean and official. The manager's office was small and professional, all glass partitions and neutral colors. Patricia folded her hands on the desk and studied the documents I'd brought. These are all joint accounts, she said. You understand I can't close them without your wife's signature? I'm not asking you to close them. I'm asking what my options are to protect my interests. She nodded slowly, pulled out a notepad, started making notes as she talked. You can remove your direct deposit. You can set up alerts for any withdrawal over a certain amount. You can open a new individual account and transfer your personal assets there. What counts as personal assets? Anything that was yours before the marriage. Inheritance. Gifts specifically given to you. Income earned after a legal separation is filed. And if I filed for separation? Then the date of filing becomes important. Everything earned or acquired after that date is considered separate property in most cases. She paused, looked at me directly. Are you planning to file? I'm gathering information, I said carefully. She spent the next hour walking me through options, protective measures, legal boundaries, everything by the book, everything documented. When I left, I had a new account in my name only, alerts set on the joint accounts, and a clearer picture of what the next steps would be. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my wife, 1 voicemail. I listened to it in the car. Where are you? I've been waiting at the coffee shop for 30 minutes. This is so typical of you. You say you'll do something and then you just don't. You make me look completely foolish sitting here alone. Call me back. I deleted it. Typical, she'd said. Like I was the unreliable one. Like I was the one who'd broken promises. The HR office was my next stop. Not my own company. I'd scheduled a consultation with a specialist who handled domestic situations. Her office was in a corporate building downtown, tucked between a law firm and an accounting office. She met me in a conference room, her desk covered with legal books and framed certifications. Professional, experienced, exactly what I needed. I need to understand my rights, I told her, in terms of property, assets, and how to document patterns of emotional misconduct. She raised an eyebrow. Emotional misconduct is tricky, hard to prove in court. I'm not planning to go to court. I'm planning to be thorough, to have documentation if I need it, dates, times, witnesses, everything above board. Tell me what happened, she said. I did. She took notes, asked clarifying questions. Her pen moved across the paper steadily, recording facts without judgment. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me seriously. You're being smart about this, she said. Most people react emotionally. They do things that hurt them later. You're thinking ahead. I've had practice being patient. She smiled slightly at that. I can tell. All right, here's what you need to know. She explained community property laws, separate property claims, the difference between legal separation and formal proceedings, how to document patterns without crossing into harassment or stalking, how to protect assets without hiding them illegally. When we finished, she handed me a folder. This is template documentation. Fill it out completely. Be specific, but not emotional. Dates and facts only. Keep copies of everything. And this, she added a business card. If you need someone to verify property claims or witness statements, he's reliable. I thanked her and left, feeling more grounded than I had since yesterday. Knowledge was power. Documentation was protection. Systems existed for exactly this reason. The afternoon stretched ahead, purposeless and strange. I drove to the restaurant district, parked, walked, found myself on the patio of an Italian place my wife always said was too expensive, too pretentious, too much for what you got. And there they were, my wife and Trevor sitting at a corner table, half hidden by a potted olive tree. She was laughing at something he said, her hand resting on the table near his. The waiter brought them wine, expensive wine, judging by the bottle. They clinked glasses like they were celebrating something. I stood on the sidewalk, watching through the iron fence that separated the patio from the street. They didn't see me. Why would they? I was invisible, had always been invisible to them. A couple walked past me, arguing quietly about where to eat. A taxi honked. Someone's phone rang. Normal sounds. A normal day for everyone except me. I pulled out my phone and took a photo. Nothing dramatic. Just the two of them at the table, visible and recognizable. Date and time stamp in the corner. Documentation. Then I took another photo. And another. Different angles. Making sure their faces were clear. Making sure the wine bottle was visible. Making sure anyone looking at these photos would understand exactly what they were seeing. Public dining. Day after being caught. No shame. No remorse. No concern for appearances or consequences. I walked back to my car and drove home, feeling strangely calm. Everything was falling into place. Every piece of evidence was adding up. Every action they took was confirming what I already knew. They thought I was harmless, thought I'd accept their explanations, thought I'd be too embarrassed to do anything. They were wrong. At home, I went straight to my office and added the photos to my folder. Made a note: public dining together day after incident, celebratory appearance, no apparent concern for appearances or consequences. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "This is Ember, Trevor's wife. Can we talk tonight? I have some things you should see." I responded, "Where and when?" "Community Center on Oak Street. Meeting room B, 7 p.m. Come alone." I arrived at 6:50. The community center was mostly empty, just a yoga class finishing up in the main hall. Their voices echoed through the corridor, talking about poses and breathing and finding center. I found meeting room B at the end of the hallway. Ember was already there, sitting at a long table with her own folders spread out in front of her. "Thank you for coming," she said. I sat across from her, noticed the papers, the printed messages, the photographs organized in neat stacks. "What do you have?" She slid her phone across the table. "Trevor's messages. I got into his account last night. He's terrible with passwords, uses the same one for everything." I scrolled through the texts, dozens between Trevor and my wife, going back months, some from early morning, some from late at night. Nothing explicitly inappropriate in the words themselves, but the tone, the casual intimacy, the inside jokes, the way they talked to each other like they had secrets nobody else knew about. "There's more," Ember said. She pushed a stack of printed photos across the table. "From the hot tub you mentioned, from dinners out, from a weekend trip to the coast last month. He told me he was visiting his brother." "She told me she was at a work conference," I said quietly. The photos showed them together, at restaurants, at a beach, walking along a pier. In one, they were standing close together, looking at something on his phone, her head nearly touching his shoulder. We sat in silence for a moment. "I'm filing for separation," Ember said. "Tomorrow. I wanted you to know in case you needed the documentation, in case it helps your situation." "It does," I said. "Thank you." She collected her folders, started organizing everything back into a briefcase, then paused. "They thought we wouldn't find out, or if we did, that we'd just accept it, that we'd be embarrassed to make a scene." "I know." "Are you going to make a scene?" I thought about that, about quiet competence and loud arrogance, about systems and documentation and truth, about Dave's advice to make it count. "No," I said finally. "I'm going to make a point. There's a difference." She smiled slightly, almost sad. "Good luck." After she left, I sat alone in the meeting room and organized everything I had. Bank documents, HR templates, photos from the restaurant, photos from Ember, message screenshots, property records, insurance statements, everything in order, everything true, everything defensible. My phone buzzed, a text from my wife. "I'm coming home tomorrow. We need to talk." I typed back, "I won't be here. I have plans." "What plans?" "You'll see." I turned off my phone and drove home through streets that felt different now, changed, like I was seeing everything clearly for the first time in years. The next morning, I woke early, made coffee in the quiet kitchen, ate breakfast standing at the counter, watching dawnlight creep across the yard. Everything felt sharper somehow, more focused, like the world had come back into clear resolution after years of blur. My wife's text came at 8. "I'm serious. We need to talk today. You can't just ignore this situation." I didn't respond. Let her wonder. Let her worry. At 9, I met with the HR consultant again. She reviewed everything I'd compiled overnight, made suggestions, helped me organize the documentation into a clear timeline. Each event dated, each piece of evidence labeled, each fact verified. When we finished, she handed me a sealed envelope. "This is your protection," she said. "Statements from witnesses, verified dates, property documentation. Keep it somewhere safe. You probably won't need it, but if you do—" "It's there," I finished. "Exactly." She stood, shook my hand. "You're doing this right. Most people don't. They get angry and make mistakes. You're being smart." "I don't feel smart. I feel like I should have seen this coming years ago." "Nobody sees it until they see it," she said. "Don't blame yourself for trusting someone you were supposed to be able to trust." By noon, I was at the county office, filing paperwork for legal separation. The building smelled like old paper and floor wax. People stood in lines, filling out forms for marriages and divorces and business licenses. Life happening in triplicate. The clerk was bored and efficient, stamping forms without looking up. She'd probably processed 100 of these this month alone. "You'll receive confirmation within 5 business days," she said. "Copy of the filing will be mailed to both parties at the address on record." "Thank you." I left feeling lighter. Strange how bureaucracy could feel like freedom, how official stamps and legal documents could feel like protection. My phone rang. "Dave, how you holding up?" he asked. "I'm good, actually good." "That's the spirit. Listen, there's a thing tonight. Neighborhood meetup at O'Brien's bar. Someone's organizing it, I guess. Sent out a group text. You going?" I hadn't seen any group text. But then again, maybe I wasn't on the list anymore. Maybe my wife had started cutting me out of neighborhood social circles without me noticing. "What time?" 7. Come by, have a drink, be normal for an hour." "Normal," I repeated. "Right." After we hung up, I stood in the parking lot thinking. A neighborhood gathering, public, casual, lots of witnesses, lots of people who knew both me and my wife, who knew Trevor and Ember. Perfect. I spent the afternoon at home, organizing my final documents. Everything was ready. Everything was in order. I'd done nothing wrong, nothing questionable, nothing that could be used against me. Just protected what was mine through legal, proper channels. My wife came home at 4. I heard her car in the driveway, her key in the lock. She walked through the house, calling my name, found me in the office. "There you are. I've been trying to reach you all day." "I've been busy." "Doing what?" "Handling things." She crossed her arms, shifted her weight. I recognized the stance, preparing for confrontation, ready to defend herself by going on the offensive. "We need to discuss what happened, like adults." "Okay," I said. "Discuss." "You completely overreacted. You embarrassed me in front of the neighbors. You locked us in the bathroom like we were children. You were sharing a bubble bath with another woman's husband in my house," I interrupted. "In my bathroom, drinking my wine. Our house, our bathroom. And it wasn't what you think. Trevor was having a hard time and I was trying to help. By getting in the bathtub with him." Her face flushed. "You're being deliberately obtuse. You always do this. You make everything into something ugly when it's perfectly innocent." "Innocent," I said. Let the word hang there. "Yes, innocent. God, you have no idea how exhausting it is being married to someone so suspicious, so ready to think the worst of me." "I've never thought the worst of you. Not once in 13 years. Not until I walked in and saw you in that bathtub." She stared at me. Something shifted in her expression. Calculation, maybe, or recognition that her usual tactics weren't working. "What have you been doing? What's all this?" She gestured at the folders on my desk. "Organizing our finances, understanding our assets, making sure everything is properly documented. Why? Because I need to know what we have. What's mine? What's ours? What's yours?" "That sounds like you're planning something." "I am," I said simply. "I'm planning to protect myself." She laughed, sharp and disbelieving. "From what? From me? I'm your wife." "Are you?" The question hung in the air between us. She opened her mouth, closed it, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "I'm going out," she said finally. "I need air. I need to think. There's a neighborhood thing tonight at O'Brien's, 7 o'clock. How do you know that?" "Dave told me." "Dave," she repeated. Contempt dripped from the name. "Of course, your bitter divorced friend. I'm sure he's been filling your head with all kinds of nonsense. Dave's been honest with me, which is more than I can say for some people." She grabbed her purse, headed for the door, stopped, turned back. "Are you coming tonight? To the bar?" "Probably." "Fine, maybe we can talk there, away from all this." She waved vaguely at my office. "All this paranoid documentation." After she left, I sat quietly for a long moment, listened to her car start, listened to her drive away. Then I opened my phone and scrolled to Ember's number. "Tonight," I typed. "O'Brien's bar, 7 p.m. Can you come?" Her response came quickly. "I'll be there." I looked at the clock. 2 hours until showtime. 2 hours to prepare, to review everything one more time, to make sure every document was accurate, every date was correct, every statement was defensible. I spent those hours in my office going through each folder methodically, the bank statements showing my deposits, my mortgage payments, my contributions to our life together. The property records showing my original purchase, my down payment, my ownership. The HR documentation showing patterns of disrespect, instances of dismissal, moments where I'd been treated as irrelevant in my own marriage. Everything was there. Everything was ready. At 6:30, I showered, put on clean clothes. Nothing special. Just me, ordinary and predictable as always. The version of myself they'd always underestimated. At 6:50, I walked out my front door and headed toward the bar. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and purple. The neighborhood looked peaceful. Kids played in yards, their voices carrying on the evening air. A dog barked somewhere. Someone was grilling, the smell of charcoal and meat drifting through the warm air. Normal life. Continuing as always, like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Everything was about to change even more. I could feel it in my chest. Not anger, not vengeance, just clarity, just truth, ready to emerge from where it had been hiding. I walked through O'Brien's front door at exactly 7 o'clock. The bar was more crowded than I expected. Maybe 30 neighbors scattered around tables and booths. Music played low in the background, something classic and familiar. The smell of beer and fried food hung in the air, mixing with perfume and cologne, and the general hum of conversation. My wife sat at a corner table with Trevor. Of course she did. They'd positioned themselves near the back, partially hidden by the crowd, but still visible enough to look casual. Natural, like they belonged together. She saw me enter and raised her glass slightly, her expression unreadable. Challenge, maybe, or defiance, or just the confidence of someone who still thought she controlled the narrative. I walked to the bar, ordered a whiskey. The bartender poured it neat, slid it across the polished wood with the easy efficiency of someone who'd done this 10,000 times. "Busy night," I said. "Neighborhood thing. They do it monthly. First Tuesday." He wiped down the bar. "You been before?" "No. Just never come to these." "Well, welcome." He moved down the bar to help another customer. I took my drink and found an empty stool near the window. Watched the room. Watched my wife laugh at something Trevor said. Watched people drift between tables, catching up, sharing stories about kids and jobs and home repairs. Normal. Everyone's so normal. The door opened behind me. I didn't turn, but I felt the shift in the room. The subtle change in energy when someone new enters and people take note. Ember walked past me toward the bar. She didn't look at me, didn't acknowledge me, just ordered her own drink and stood there, waiting, scanning the room like she was looking for someone. My wife noticed her. I saw the moment of recognition, saw her touch Trevor's arm urgently, saw him turn, see Ember, and go very still. His face went pale, his hand clenched around his beer bottle. The bartender handed Ember her wine. She took it with a nod of thanks, turned slowly, and walked directly to my wife's table. "Mind if I join you?" Ember asked. Her voice was calm, pleasant even, like she was asking about the weather. "Actually," my wife started. "Great." Ember sat down, set her wine carefully on the table, folded her hands. "We should all talk, don't you think? Clear the air?" Trevor stood abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor. "Jen, not here. This isn't the place." "Sit down," Ember said. Something in her tone made him sit. The nearby conversations had started to quiet. People were noticing, paying attention, sensing drama the way crowds always do. "Here's the thing," Ember said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear clearly. "My husband has been having an inappropriate relationship with someone else's wife." "Your wife?" She nodded toward me. "For months, maybe longer. I'm still figuring out the timeline." "That's not true," my wife said quickly. Too quickly. "We're just friends." "You were in a bubble bath together. In her house, in her bathroom. While her husband was out buying groceries you'd asked him to get." Silence spread through the bar like ripples in water. Conversations stopping, heads turning. Everyone suddenly very interested in what was happening at the corner table. "It was innocent," Trevor tried. His voice cracked slightly. "We were just—" "I have your messages," Ember said. She pulled out her phone, set it on the table with a deliberate click. Months of them. Late-night conversations, inside jokes, photos from places you told me you weren't. Lies about where you were going, who you were with, what you were doing. My wife looked at me then. Really looked at me for the first time in what might have been years. Her eyes were wide, searching for something. Help, maybe, or mercy. "This is ridiculous. You're making a scene over nothing." I raised my glass slightly, took a sip, said nothing. "And you," Ember continued, turning to my wife. "You told your husband you were at a work conference last month, remember? The one in Portland?" "I was at a conference. Trevor told me he was visiting his brother in Seattle. Funny thing about that. His brother lives in Phoenix, has lived there for 10 years. I called him this morning to check." More silence. Heavier now. Suffocating. I stood, walked over to their table, pulled up a chair, sat down like we were all old friends catching up over drinks. "I filed for legal separation this morning," I said conversationally. Matter of fact. Like I was discussing sports scores. "Papers will arrive at the house in about 5 days. Joint accounts have been protected through proper legal channels. Property rights have been clarified and documented. Everything by the book, everything legal, everything above board." My wife's face went white. Actually white, like someone had drained all the color out. "You what?" "I also met with an HR consultant. Documented patterns of emotional misconduct over the past several months. Got witness statements. Established a timeline of events." I pulled a folder from my jacket, set it on the table next to Ember's phone. "It's all here. Dates, photos, messages, public sightings, restaurant receipts, everything verified and accurate." "You've been spying on me?" Her voice rose. People at nearby tables weren't even pretending not to listen anymore. "You've been gathering evidence like I'm some kind of criminal?" "I've been protecting myself, documenting facts. There's a difference." Trevor leaned forward, tried to sound reasonable. "Look, man, this is between you and your wife. Don't drag everyone else into it." "Everyone else is already in it," I said, kept my voice level, calm. "You made sure of that when you decided my home was a good place for your bubble bath, when you started having dinner with my wife at restaurants where our neighbors could see you." Someone laughed. One of the neighbors at a nearby table. A short, sharp sound that was quickly suppressed, but the damage was done. The story was out. The truth was public. Ember stood, picked up her phone. "I'm filing tomorrow, too. Separation, maybe more. I haven't decided yet. But Trevor, you should know, I changed the locks this afternoon. Your clothes are boxed up in the garage. You can get them any time, just not from inside the house. Jen, please. Please what? Please forgive you? Please pretend I didn't see what I saw? Please let you make a fool of me in front of everyone we know? She shook her head. No. I'm done being please. My wife grabbed my arm. Her fingers dug in, desperate and sharp. Stop this, just stop. We can fix this, we can go home and talk and figure this out. There's nothing to figure out, I said. Gently pulled my arm free. Looked at her directly. You made your choices. Now you live with them. I made a mistake. One mistake. You're going to throw away 13 years over one mistake? It wasn't one mistake. I opened the folder, showed her the timeline Ember and I had created together. Months of dates, dozens of instances, a pattern so clear even she couldn't deny it. It was months of lies, months of disrespect, months of treating me like I was too stupid to notice, too weak to care, too predictable to do anything about it. I never said you were stupid. You didn't have to say it. You showed it. Every time you laughed at Trevor's jokes while ignoring mine. Every time you rolled your eyes when I talked at dinner parties. Every time you implied I was boring. Every time you made me feel like I should be grateful you stayed. The bar was completely silent now. 30 people listening to a marriage dissolve in real time. Watching quiet, predictable me finally say everything I'd been holding back. My wife's eyes filled with tears. Everyone's staring. Can we please go somewhere private? No, I said, because privacy is what you wanted. Privacy is what allowed this to happen. Privacy protects the wrong people. Trevor stood again, fumbled for his wallet. I'm leaving. This is insane. You're all insane. Good idea, Ember said. Run along. That's what you do best, isn't it? Run when things get difficult. He ran out, pushing through the crowd like the place was burning. My wife froze, seeing the faces, the judgment, the neighbors who'd talk about this for months. You planned this, she whispered. You brought me here to humiliate me. I showed the truth, I said, finishing my whiskey. Now everyone knows what kind of person you are, and what kind of person Trevor is. She stood, shaky. I'm going to fight this. You can't throw me out of my own house. Our house, I corrected. Bought by me, paid by me, documented. You'll get exactly what the law says, nothing more. I hate you. No, you're just angry you got caught. She turned on Ember. You're enjoying this. I'm not, Ember said quietly. I'm just done being lied to. My wife shoved her way out. The door slammed, her car started, and she was gone. The bar stayed still a moment before conversation slowly resumed. Ember set down her wine. Well, that happened? Yeah. Feel better? I did. The years of doubt, second-guessing, and wondering if I was the problem. Gone. Yeah, I do. Good. You deserve to. So do you. We sat together, two people wrecked by the same pair of selfish partners. The neighborhood would gossip, but I didn't care. The truth was out. Everything was documented. My phone buzzed. You're going to regret this. I showed Ember. She laughed. Are you? I looked around the bar at the people who'd witnessed everything, who couldn't be manipulated into another version of the story. I thought about my house, my accounts, my life, protected now. No, I said. I really don't think I am. I stood, paid for my drink, and walked out with my head high. Behind me, voices rose. My name, Trevor's, the whole story spreading fast. Good. Let it spread. Let everyone learn that quiet doesn't mean weak, patient doesn't mean powerless. I stepped into the cool evening air feeling lighter than I had in years. Free, clear, victorious.